Hi everybody, Chris with School Garden Project here, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to start some seeds inside. A lot of things in the garden need a long time to grow, especially if you're talking about like squash or zucchini or cucumbers or tomatoes. A lot of the things we think of as summer crops take a really long time to grow. One of the ways that you can do that when you have a little bit shorter growing season, still be able to grow those crops, is by starting them inside in some different containers and then transplanting them into your garden later. I like to do this around the end of April for all of my cucumbers, and that's actually what we're going to be doing today. So, some things that you'll need. You'll need some good potting soil. You definitely want to have potting soil because it has these little rocks in it called perlite. And I'll see if I can move them closer. You can kind of see the white chunks in there. Those are the perlite that helps to hold air in the soil and lets water get down to your plant's roots a lot easier. You can find potting soil at any garden store, in bags. I like to get it in bulk from a larger home retail, forest products type place. That way I'm not using any plastic. But if you can't find that, if you don't have access to that in your area, feel free to get some potting soil from there. You could even start some with some soil from your garden or from somewhere else. But without the perlite, it's going to hold a lot more water and it's not going to drain quite right. So you might have to keep a little bit more of an eye on it. So you need some potting soil. A shovel can be helpful too. And then you need some kind of containers to put your things in. I like to use the trays. I like to reuse trays that I buy plants in. So sometimes I'll buy starts already started for my garden. Gives me a little bit of a jump on things, makes it a little easier than having to make sure that seeds germinate. And so I just save these and wash them out when I'm finished with my whatever it is that I'm planting. And then I reuse them to start my own starts later. I also like to label everything, so I'll see if you can come up close. These ones say cukes for my cucumbers that we're going to be starting here in a little bit. If you don't have these, if you don't already have some containers like this, and I like to use some different sizes, bigger for larger plants, so we're going to do like our big butternut squash and zucchinis and winter squash in these, and then the cucumbers are going to go in these little small ones here. If you don't have access to containers like this, you can use an old yogurt cup or paper carton. I've even seen people use egg cartons and seed a couple seeds in each one of these cells with some soil. And the cool thing about using something that's made out of cardboard, like this egg carton, is that when your plants are ready to go in the ground, you don't even have to take them out of the container. You can just plant this whole thing in the ground, it'll decompose, and the roots of your plant will go down into that plant, into the ground in your garden once you transplant them out there. But for today, I think we're just going to be using some of these containers. Our first step is going to be to fill the containers. And you don't want to fill them all the way up so that they're overflowing, but you want to leave a little bit of room, and you want to pack them down just a little bit. You don't want to pack them in super tight, and then you want to leave about that much room on them. I'll show you what that'll look like on our cucumbers in a little bit. And like I said, just a little pat to pat them down. You don't have to push too hard with that. So I'll fill these up. And then we'll fill up all of our containers. I like to kind of get an assembly line going. Some people like to do everything one at a time, but I like to fill up all of this all together. That way it just seems to work a little bit better for my brain. All right. And if you accidentally fill up your cup a little bit too much, you can just knock some of that down. Don't try and pack it down if you fill it up too much, because like I said, if you pack it down, it won't drain right, and your seeds might not actually germinate at all even. All right, and now let's get on to our cucumbers. And then what I'm going to do with these starts, once I get these seeded, is I'm going to put these inside. You could put them on a windowsill. You could put them inside a little greenhouse if you have one, or a cold frame. But what I'm actually going to do is I have a heat mat, which is kind of like an electric blanket that goes underneath the starts and warms them all up. All right, so I'm going to actually end up taking these once I seed them, and I'm going to put them onto my heat mat. I like it a little bit better than the windowsill because the plants don't start to stretch and reach out for the window light as much as they do on the heat mat. Plus the heat mat gets them up to a temperature where they can germinate. Because that's one of the problems with these cucumbers. You could totally plant them outside when it gets warm enough, but that means I'm going to have to wait around for another 3 or 4 weeks, which is going to put me back behind 3 or 4 weeks, which means I might get less cucumbers over the course of the summer. And I love cucumbers, so I want as many as possible. So I'm going to start these inside, and then in about 3 or 4 weeks, once they've all grown up and have a few leaves per each plant, then I'll move and transplant them into the garden. And maybe I'll make a video for that later, showing you how these things have grown up and where they end up in my garden this summer. So, once we have these all filled up, and now what we do is we will fill up this one last one, and then we're going to put some seeds in each of these trays that we've started. And depending on what kind of seed you're using, if you look on the seed packet, a lot of times they'll tell you what the germination rate is. Usually if it's above like 80%, 75, 80%, then I feel okay only putting one seed in. But most of the things that are a little bit less likely to sprout, I might put 2 seeds in each one of these 6 cells. So I might put like 2 seeds here, 2 seeds here, seeds there, with all my cucumbers. That way, even if they don't all come up, then I still have some that hopefully will come up. All right, so one last thing to go, and then I will show you how to put some seeds in there. So let's start off with my zucchinis. So I have some zucchini seeds, as you can see here. And I know that these do really well. They come up almost 100% of the time. So I think I'm just going to put 1 in these. And be sure to read the package, the packet that your seeds come in, and it'll tell you how deep to plant them and about what the temperature needs to be in order for them to germinate, as well as other things about kind of what the plant likes or how big it might get, or some other options for you to plant it. All right, and I will keep seeding these cucumbers here. Gonna push these acorns down. And sometimes if they get a little bit too deep in there, or if your soil kind of packs down a little bit, you can sprinkle a little bit more on top of those too. It shouldn't hurt anything. You just don't want to fill these containers up all the way. That would be a little bit much for them. It would also make it so that they don't drain as well. And when they don't drain as well, then you start to have problems with your seeds. So the better drainage, the better. And like I said, I'm going to drop a couple seeds into each cell, just in case one of them doesn't germinate, because I really want to have cucumbers. So I'll show you what that looks like. See, I put 2 in each cell, and I'm trying to spread them out a little bit. That way it makes it easier. If both of them do come up, then you can pull one out easier without hurting the best one that you want to leave there, that you want to grow out of that cell. And then I'll just poke these down into the soil a little bit, and then maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit more soil just on top, to kind of the icing on the cake. Okay. There we go. That's a big stick there. And one last one. And again, just like with the last cucumbers, I'll put 2 of these in each cell. I hope that they're going to come up, but just in case, I don't want to have to start this process over again in a few weeks when I realize that these don't come up in a week or 2. I don't want to have to come back and be even further behind on my cucumbers, which means they get less growing time this summer, because I really want some of these pickling cucumbers this summer. Again, I'll show you what I did with that. Kind of like this. Awesome. So I'll just push those seeds in. I will sprinkle just a little bit more soil on top. And now they should be ready for their first life-giving drink. So with that, you want to make sure to water your seeds and keep them moist, but you don't have to water them all the time. Usually once every day or 2, depending on how hot it is or how quickly your heat mat's drying them out, or if you're sitting them in the windowsill, how sunny it is. Then best way to check is to just kind of use the back of your hand. If it still feels wet, you're good. If it feels a little dry, add a little bit of water. I'm going to use a watering can with mine. All right. So I hope that you found this video to be helpful, and good luck with you starting all your seeds. Happy planting. Have a great rest of your day.